So now we have what may be called Al-Qurashiyah, a segment of society. We know up until the oft-quoted hadiths, the two of which were just quoted, and other similar and collaborative hadiths that give legitimacy to Quraysh. And we know that Quraysh, in its bulk, was at war with Allah and His Prophet for the longevity of the Prophet's existence in Arabia. But now we have a king who comes from this bulk and this center of Quraysh that needs legitimacy, because here we no longer have the peaceful transition of power which we noticed in the previous 4 administrations preceding this king. This king is King Muwaiyah, as we are speaking, to continue what we were shedding light on previously. Now, these are hadiths that may or may not be authentic, but we know for sure what is authentic, and these are the ayat in the Quran. And the ayah that we all know, that has no change to it and tolerates no ambiguity of meaning, is Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most noble, the most honorable of you in the sight of Allah are those who are more on their guard towards Him. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. This is not a mutashabih ayah. This is not an ayah that tolerates a variety of complementary meanings. This is a clear, clarifying ayah. The most honorable, dignified in the sight of Allah are those who have taqwa. There is no blanket here statement for a tribe or a nationality. If there are people within Quraysh who acquire taqwa, they are noble. If there are people within Quraysh who acquire a degenerative behavior, they are excluded from the meanings of this ayah. Al-Qurashiyah became a problem because now we have rulers who are propagandizing what is reported to be hadiths that are related to Allah's Prophet that give legitimacy to Quraysh to lead. So now we have a king that says, I am from Quraysh, therefore I have a special status to rule. Another problematic issue is that sought to give legitimacy to an illegitimate ruler. Remember, this extends from those days up until now. The only exception in that early era was Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. He wanted to tear down this false legitimacy and to bring back the relationship that belongs between those who rule and those who are ruled. But besides that, we have had this ongoing, and still we have it today. Another area that the rulers tried to use, beginning at that time, to give themselves, these new kings and monarchs in Islam, to give themselves legitimacy, was what is called a suhbah. A suhbah means the companionship to Allah's Prophet. And that is fine also. But now it comes to, what do you mean by a companionship to Allah's Prophet? And here we begin to be exposed to an expanded definition, a very flexible definition that made anyone who saw Allah's Prophet to be in the company of Allah's Prophet, or to be a Sahabi. So now we have these people who, at the end of the 23 years of struggle that Allah's Prophet gave to the Muslims and to the world, the last year or two, there were some people in Mecca who jumped on the Islamic wave of the future and declared themselves to be Muslims, and therefore entered into the company of Allah's Prophet, and some of them only by seeing him. So, by visualizing Allah's Prophet, according now to those who have usurped power in the Umayyad dynasty, according to them, these people are Sahabis. And so, the first king to be, he wasn't a king yet. Muwaiyah at that time was a taliq, a person who was amnestied when the Prophet and Islam regained their position in Mecca. But the propaganda machine went to work full force during that first monarchy to try to impart legitimacy to the monarchy. So they had to say that this Muwaiyah, the first king in Islam, he has virtues to him. He is from Quraysh. And remember what we are saying to you from state position, from positions of power. Quraysh has a legitimacy, and a suhbah has a legitimacy. So this king now was trying to pull these two currents together to give him legitimacy. And the literature goes that Muwaiyah was a scribe. He wrote the wahi. So doesn't that give him a special status? There was another person, they don't mention these in these books. There was another person, Abdullah ibn Abi Sarh. He was also a scribe who wrote the wahi. But what happened to him? He became a murtad. He denounced Islam. He lied about Allah's Prophet. And there was nothing there that says, just because he wrote the wahi, we are going to overlook his true character and behavior. Besides, if a suhbah, the meaning and the definition of a suhbah is to extend to mean everyone who saw Allah's Prophet, there were munafiqeen around who saw Allah's Prophet.